Hi, we're the North Mississippi Allstars.
Welcome to the Blues Kitchen.
The North Mississippi Allstars released Up and Rolling in October of 2019 on New West Records. Their new LP is perhaps their finest to date, with guest appearances from Mavis Staples, Jason Isbell, and fellow Hill Country resident Cedric Burnside. Brothers Luther and Cody are the free-spirited inheritors of Hill Country blues, helping broaden the reach of the juke joint repertoire of RL Burnside, Mississippi Fred McDowell, and Junior Kimbrough to a younger jam band audience. We discuss the making of the new album, their attitude on blues in the 21st century, and they perform the title track from the new LP. And while you're watching, like this video and subscribe to the channel for regular episodes of the Blues Kitchen Presents. Cody.
What's going on,
Yes. Luther.
Oh man.
So good to have you. North Mississippi All-Stars.
Thanks for having us.
The session you just played is an absolute killer.
Thank you.
So your new album, Up and Rolling. I'm really intrigued by this thing I've been reading about. A lot of times when you hear, oh, we got inspired by this or inspired by this, and if someone were to mention a set of photos, they might be talking about some photos from 100 years ago or something like this. But from what I understand, the inspiration on this album was actually an undeveloped roll of pictures of you guys from the mid-90s.
That's right.
And that kind of got the ball rolling on the record? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
We had already started recording. We recorded already Out on the Road and a few other songs, but our friend Wyatt McSpadden, we'd seen like 5 of the pictures because we used them for Luther Turner's record, Everybody Hollering Gov't in '96. Mm-hmm. And we were familiar with those, but he came to us in 17 in Texas, and he brought all these pictures. And it was, Wyatt came to Mississippi, long story short, one Sunday to photograph musicians, and we took him around. We went to Others, we went to Junior Kimbrough's juke joint.
Oh, wow.
RL Burnside, his family was there. It was a perfect day in the Hill Country, classic Hill Country experience. And Wyatt, that was our life. Like, it was, we had started the band, but we were like a couple of weeks before our first show. So like,
oh, so you were like just about ready to get moving at that point.
Living the dream, man. I mean, that community and that music and that whole energy and vibe was so inspirational. It changed our life.
Yeah.
You know, and it bled into so many other things. You know, it's like, I think they were about to record Ass Pocket of Whiskey. You know,
oh, really?
It was like right at the pinnacle.
Yeah.
So Wyatt took all these pictures real casual, and then he showed them to us in 2017, and we're like, man, because like there's like Burnside at Juniors, and I'm playing guitar behind him, or Cody by the jukebox. And
Amazing. How old were you guys at that point? Pretty young, right?
Early 20s.
Amazing.
For me, yeah.
What a time.
So we wanted to illustrate like what that music sounded like then and what it sounds like now, because those guys are all gone. But we got Cedric Burnside is the king of the, you know.
He recorded a session for us in this very room. Behind that,
Shout out, Ced.
The king.
What's up, man?
And Sade Thomas,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Others not with us anymore, but she's carrying it on.
With the
And
5.
Yeah, so it's so good. Gary Burnside played bass, you know.
Oh, really?
You know, Gary really looks young in the pictures. Dwayne looks so young.
Yeah.
So
And on the cover, there's a, you can see Luther and I in the bottom right corner, but standing on the porch is Dexter Burnside on this giant cell phone, you know, one of the big
got like a
box
backpack on or
things.
something.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. So the album, recording-wise, you did this still at Zebra Ranch, right?
Most of it.
From the majority.
I don't know, quite kind of selfishly, I hope you never record a North Mississippi All-Stars record out of Mississippi, and it doesn't seem like you ever should. But you were saying before the cameras were rolling, you actually tracked the drums, for example, I think at your house, right?
Yeah, which is North Mississippi. I mean,
course.
it's in South Haven.
But how important is it to you to actually stay in kind of town, if you will, to record?
You know, that's a very funny phenomenon. And our last record, Prayer for Peace, we recorded on the road.
Yeah.
Completely inspired by that picture of Led Zeppelin coming off the airplane. They're all carrying the tapes.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah,
sometimes that's as good as you can do.
Yeah.
And our last record, we record all the time. Like we recorded the other day wherever we were in Paris or wherever we were. And you know, even a day like today, we would probably have been recording somewhere because that's how we travel.
Yeah.
But so our last record, Prayer for Peace, was recorded on the road everywhere.
Sort of out of necessity.
out of necessity.
Yeah.
Time, really.
Right,
Just
yeah.
finding the time to be together and get it done.
But this record we cleaned up the studio, we like cleaned up the traps, dusted off the old amps, and recorded
So
at
if you
home.
guys aren't in there, is it not really up and running as a
People
studio?
come.
Yeah, people
Yeah,
come and record there, but for the most part, yeah, it stays just quiet. My mom is the studio manager. She does
Really?
a great job keeping it, like keeping the grass cut or whatever, you know what I mean?
So of C6, Steve and Robert Plant, they've come through the studio and done bits and pieces in there, right?
Steve has them, but Robert and Patty did, and
Amazing.
Watermelon Slim was just there.
Really?
Yeah.
Another person we've been doing
Love him,
sessions
man.
with
Cool.
recently. Cool.
But international people, we just recorded weddings, parties, and anything from Australia. They came to Memphis and spent 3 days. So the studio is great, but to be honest, after we lost our dad, we didn't go back in there for a while. It was too sad for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And how did you find a way of kind of getting over that? I mean, I'm not saying you'd ever get over the loss of your dad, but how did you deal with the fact like we've got to use this room at some point? So was it a kind of, I think Dad would want us to be doing this, or?
Definitely know he would.
Yeah?
For sure. That was sort of part of his, it was his vision, he had a real gift for having a long view, seeing the big picture, and that was definitely part of his plan, so it's great.
Did you
to keep
guys
it
never
going.
have any choice but to do what you're doing, really?
Right, yeah, that's true, yeah.
It's funny, man, because even that day when we took Wyatt McSpadden around Mississippi,
This is back in the 90s.
back in the 90s,
photos.
the day of the photos, it was supposed to be Dad. They were expecting Dad to do the job and to show them around.
That's right.
But they rolled up to our house and Dad was like, nah, I'll send you with my boys. The boys will take you. They'll show you around.
But he's throwing us a bone,
Throwing us a bone.
Yeah,
But still,
yeah.
the production and the collaboration, still,
Yes.
he's a master of producing and collaborating from the grave, man. As is Other. Like the lyrics, I go back through my tapes and find the lyrics that Other would improvise. It's so fun keeping. To me, I think that like those lyrics that he improvised on the porch are like a gift, and to make use of them and to organize them and give them to Sade, and she just sings her heart out. I think that's powerful. That's a good deed.
Yeah. I mean, the essence of your, I don't know, like, to me, the Allstars has always seemed, as a name would suggest,
Yeah.
it's a collaborative rather than just you guys, right? You've got Jesse
collective.
with you. A collective, yeah, exactly. And this album's obviously no different. So Jason Isbell's on there.
Yeah.
Mavis, which would be great to talk about in depth. Cedric's on there. Sade, Turner. So you're very much keeping that alive. And you guys are the torchbearers, if you will, for that North Mississippi sound. But when someone like Mavis walks into the room, how much goes out of the window? And you just kind of end up following Mavis's lead, because she might be small, but she's got like the presence of a giant, right, when you're in the room with her. So maybe you could tell us about that experience. And obviously you're doing a Staples Singers tune on the record as well.
She's such an inspiration, man, and an example, like
7 decades, I think she's been singing professionally, we figured out.
Awesome.
It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
it's
so-
bonkers.
And we were on the road with her, and when we first started working together, she would tell stories about her dad. And her dad, she was telling us stories about Charlie Patton through her dad. That's as far back as it goes,
Yeah.
And then she talks about Howlin' Wolf coming to visit when she was a little kid and scaring her to death. Like, who is that guy, Howlin' Wolf?
Yeah.
But I mean, she represents everything. She lived through civil rights, and she's still marching on the Freedom Highway. She's still a freedom fighter and freedom rocker.
She is so sweet and patient with me, specifically, personally. Like,
Well, why do you say that?
man, like, I mean, we toured, like Luther said, we toured with her, and it was a long performing. It's like it's called Cami. It's like a performing arts center kind of package tour we did with Mavis and Charlie Musselwhite.
Oh,
it was an amazing experience. We're riding on like this little kind of school bus type thing for 6 weeks. But I'd always be late to the bus, or just being stupid, man, messing up. But she never would lose her patience with me. And even recently, we just did her birthday party at the Ryman, and I was late for the stage call. Like, literally, like
The
everyone's
one person
on stage.
you don't want to be late for.
Dude, yeah, and I run out there. And I'm like, sorry, Mavis, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, dude.
What did you play with her?
Freedom Highway.
Was it Freedom Highway?
That's the song that brought us together.
Right.
Yeah.
Because our dad, his record collection still shapes, my aesthetic, But the Freedom Highway record recorded live in church, that had Freedom Highway and What You Gonna Do. But the thing that set it apart, not only was it live in church, it had a rhythm section. It was a trio, Pops with Phil Upchurch on bass, and the drumming was so funky. So I was like, it's always been one of my favorite records. Live in church. So we recorded it in 2000, and there was one lyric we couldn't understand, and our mom reached Mavis Staples, and Yvonne faxed us a lyric sheet.
Faxed it.
But they were just like, who are these crazy kids in Mississippi singing our protest song, you know? And then we did a show together in Memphis right after that, and it was Pop's last trip to Memphis, and we got to shake his hand, and he saw us play the tune, and then I fell in love with Yvonne. Yvonne was a really special person too.
Yeah.
So it's just a love fest, man.
I mean, that's so heaven. Right? So heaven, for sure.
And Mavis has been giving me some sweet smooches.
Oh, Lord.
Not the kiss and
What
tell.
are you trying to tell us?
Hey, man. Come on, I'm in the club.
Last thing I want to ask you really is with regards to the record, and I suppose your sound as a whole, and this could be like a 3-day conversation, but let's keep this concise.
Got it.
You obviously, as we said before, are kind of these torchbearers, North Mississippi, Hill Country Blues, and your records are always rooted in that. But you've always got one foot in the future as well. And like I say, this could be something we could almost debate for days.
Yes.
But how do you approach that? How do you keep, true to your roots, if you will, the location in which you're recording, your peers, but still take it forward?
That's a really good question.
You want to go and then I'll go?
Yeah. I can tell you real quick my approach to that, man. It's very it's just a natural thing for me because I'm inspired by modern music and a lot of modern influences always. Just being a normal person, and that works its way into my music. When I was younger, it wasn't important to me really to maintain the tradition, but as I get older, I realize how important it is to preserve a certain amount of the tradition and the music that we play. Yeah. So it's a balancing act for me, because I love electronic music, I like all kinds of stuff, and it definitely seeps its way into our music, but it's very organic and it's not calculated, If anything, I just try to pull the brakes on the contemporary stuff. What it was is seeing younger people play, starting to play like Shake 'Em On Down, for example, and I noticed that they would play it like the way we play it, and then I was like, well, wait a minute, I don't want to
be responsible
distill it too much, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You try to hold on and preserve as much of the tradition as possible, while, like you said, moving forward and keeping it exciting for myself.
Yeah, of course.
Sure,
man. What are you saying, Lisa?
Well, first, to wrap up the last question, and I think recording in Mississippi is powerful. To actually do it there in the air. If you're going to make Memphis music, you do it in Memphis. And you go to Mississippi, it's more fertile down there. The spirits are there. But to me, it's like we were so fortunate, our dad and his community, and so many musicians, elder musicians, and then also the North Mississippi musicians. The older cats, they were great teachers. And they, Junior taught Gary Burnside by hand. Cedric was learned as a teenager how to be a professional musician, working with his grandfather.
Thrown in the deep end.
Thrown in the deep end. They were great teachers.
16.
And we owe it to them to not only keep their germs of strains of their repertoire alive, but also to teach younger kids now. And that's one of my main goals is that, I'm 46 and I want to play with people, we play with Phil Lesh and he's almost 80 and Mavis is 80. And then we have students that are way more fiery than we are now that are like teenagers and that are to embrace all ages of musicians. That is a powerful thing and something that's has really been stirring in my heart. So I think it's important to carry it on but also pass it on. And that's a natural, easy thing. And as far as I think the repertoire is what needs to be protected. When it comes to roots music, if you look at the big picture of fine arts, roots music is in its infancy. You know what I mean? It's a very new art form.
Yeah.
And it's fun to
That's
be...
a really interesting thought. I've never thought about it that way before.
And it's fun to experiment and write new songs and do things and rock and roll, whatever, Yeah. But the lyrics and the melodies, I think, need to be protected. The repertoire has to be nurtured and passed on. And you can play it however you want, put a funky beat to it or remix it or play it super loud and distorted, but it's the melody and the poetry that I think is important to pass on and keep alive and reinterpret.
I don't think we can go any further than that.
Right.
I mean, that's it. And your point there about essentially roots music being in its infancy for something that really is only 100 years old, really, isn't it? Is food for thought for sure. Amazing.
Right.
Perhaps you'd be kind enough to introduce your performance then.
We're the North Mississippi Allstars.
And this is Up and Rollin'.
Mississippi, hippie tripping, LSD, smoking stems and seeds and drinking mushroom tea. We're drinking mushroom tea. We're drinking mushroom tea. Here's to the Mississippi, hippies tripping, LSD. Yeah, we be up and rolling. With our friends, yeah, we be up and rolling. Extension cords out the window of RL's single wide, smoking through a peever, sounding good outside. We sounding good outside. We sounding good outside. Extension cords out the window of RL single wide. Yeah, we be up and rolling. Yeah, we be up and rolling. Singing them blues with our friends. Yeah, we be up and rolling. Roll on.
Subscribe to The Blues Kitchen for live performances and interviews with the hottest blues, soul, country and roots musicians in the world today.